Mhm. There we are. And good morning. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB, Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and this is our small group where we gather together. I read from the Bible aloud, you following along at home or just listening or wherever you're at, because I know some people aren't at home when they're joining. And some of you aren't joining live, and that's awesome. It truly is. So for me, this is Thursday, August 31st, and it is 9 o'clock. So since it's Thursday, it's the end of our week for PB Reads the Bible. We only do this Tuesdays and Thursdays, and sometimes I have to cancel those. But we're here today, right? Tuesday, Thursday. So this is it for today, for this week. So I do have a couple announcements, but first is to invite you, encourage you to say hello. Let me know you're there. Romper room, roll call, whatever you want to call it. I don't take attendance. There's no big deal if you do or do not let me know. But I just like to know who's joining me on this day, or whenever you're joining. Like I said, I know some folks aren't able to join live. You're joining at other times of the day or some other day this week. I do go back in. I look to see who's there. I also look to see what kind of questions or comments you might be making so that I can address those. So when you see me look to my left, I'm checking Facebook to see what you're putting up there. Not that they always tell me what you're putting up there, because sometimes it doesn't show up right away. But you can, of course, you can also send me texts on things, 570-351-1619. If you see me looking to my right, it's because my phone is vibrating off the table and I looking to see what it is that's going on there. We are sharing life. So whatever is on your hearts, whatever is lifting you up and whatever is weighing you down, let us know. I'll be in prayer about it. We'll be in prayer about it, not just today, but other days as well. And I see some folks are checking in. John and Cindy, good morning. Good to have you joining us this morning. Nope, I don't think that is. Nope, something else. Just an email that I don't have to address right now, which is a good thing. Excuse me. We are working our way through Kings, and we are on to 1 Kings chapter 12. And we'll go through this. Let's before we get into that, or before I make any other announcements, though, let's have a prayer. Good morning, God, and thank you for this glorious day that you have provided to us. Thank you for this opportunity to gather together in this way, through this medium, across time, across distance. Although we're not in the same room, we're in the same place, and we're with you. Guide our hearts and our minds, open our hearts and our minds to what you would have us receive this morning. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. All right. So like I said, today is it for this week for PB Reads the Bible. We will be back at it on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. And I believe next week we're on, I believe next week is a regular week. Tuesday and Thursday should be fine and dandy. And I hope you enjoy your Labor Day celebrations this weekend. Other announcements, though, because between today and Thursday is Sunday, and we will be having worship on Sunday. This week we begin a new worship series called Come to the Table, and it is a 5-week series. It is throughout September and the first week of October. It ends on the first week of October, which is World Communion Sunday. So it's Come to the Table. I think it's going to be really good. I've been doing some work with it. I think it's going to be cool. We're probably going to be we will be posting a video to introduce it right here on Facebook a little bit later today. So check that video out, and I'm going to see what we can do about having it repost a couple times, or maybe even pay for an ad or something like that as we go through that, to just to promote it. I think it's going to be a really good worship experience over these next few weeks. 8:15 and 10:45 are both live, both in person, I should say, live and in person. 8:15 is only in person, and that's a little bit of a different worship experience. We we sing along with videos, and they're a little bit, some of them are very contemporary, some of them are just moderately contemporary, like traditional words that have been updated tunes, so to speak. And it's a pretty informal kind of setting as well. You might call it a blended worship experience, not all out contemporary worship in nature. And then 10:45 is our traditional style worship with hymns and songs, either on the piano or the organ. I'm not sure what John is playing this week. The one song might be on the piano rather than both on the organ. And that one is also live streamed. So we'd love to have you in person at either the 8:15 or the 10:45. But if you can't make it in person, the 10:45, please join us live stream at the 10:45 worship as well. Love to have that take place. Good morning, Bonnie. Good to have you with us. And yes, prayers for Carl and Nancy. Absolutely, prayers for Carl and Nancy. Carl's doing well, but he's in a lot of pain. He's in a lot of pain. They really can't be giving him the kind of pain medication they would typically give, because he also has a pacemaker, and the medication is messing that up. So they have to be very careful. So he's in a lot of pain. A lot of pain. Okay, so that's it for announcements. You can continue to put your prayer requests on there in the stream, or send me texts, so we can keep each other surrounded in prayer and lifted up in prayer as we go through things. And let's hit the reading, shall we? Chapter 12. So just as a reminder, from Tuesday, Solomon died. That ended with Solomon's death. So what happens next, right? Jeroboam ben Nebat fled to Egypt to get away from Solomon. Let's see. Rehoboam went to Shechem, for all Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. When Jeroboam, son of Nebat, heard of it, for he was still in Egypt, where he had fled from King Solomon, then Jeroboam returned from Egypt, and they sent and called him. And Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and said to Rehoboam, "Your father made our yoke heavy. Now, therefore, lighten the hard service of your father and his heavy yoke that he placed on us, and we will serve you." He said to them, "Go away for 3 days, then come again to me." So the people went away. Pause. Okay. So Rehoboam went to Shechem. Remember, even though Israel is one nation, it's already starting to divide in two. That started under Solomon, because he was putting so much pressure, so much weight of work, and so much stuff that had to be heavily taxed, we might say, on the northern part of the kingdom, the 10 tribes of the north of what will become Israel. In fact, numerous times when it said all Israel, it was really only talking about the northern 10 tribes. Other times, you have to look at the context to see if the author is talking about all 12 tribes or just the 10. Solomon was a little bit nicer to the southern two, to Judah and to Benjamin, even though Benjamin's kind of off on their own. We're going to find that again. So Shechem is actually in what's going to become the northern kingdom. It's in the northern parts of Israel. And he goes to Shechem to be crowned king. And yes, it says all of Israel had come to Shechem to make him king. Well, all of Israel shows up there, or at least representatives from all of the tribes, I'm sure, showed up there. to make him king. What's important about this? Well, Shechem is a northern kingdom. He probably should have been or could have been crowned king in Jerusalem, but that's one of the southern. That's in the southern section of the country, of the nation. So at first blush, it might look like he's being nice to the north by honoring this place, Shechem, which has a history. Go back and read Judges, and you'll see the history of Shechem. That revolts took place there. And he goes to Shechem. So it sounds at first blush like it's like he's honoring the north by being crowned king in Shechem. But is that really what he's doing? Because it could also very easily be seen, and probably even probably easier to see it as him being very bold and brash and displaying authority over the north by going there to be claimed king. Good morning, Maureen. You're joining us live this morning. Ooh, you're up early because Kentucky, I think, an hour behind us, right? Central time zone. Whew. So you're up bright and early to join us today. Great to have you. Great to have you with us. So he's gone to Shechem, a place where revolts had taken place. In fact, the city wasn't what it once was, but he goes there to be crowned king, and all Israel shows up. Not literally every person in the state and the nation, no, but I'm sure multiple people from each tribe. So there was probably a large group of people there. But they have sent for, and it's, who's they? People from the north. It says they sent and called him. They sent and called for Jeroboam. This would be the people from the northern tribes. They sent and called for Jeroboam. We want you here. He doesn't do a whole lot. He's fairly passive in this. We're not even told that he directly speaks to Rehoboam, because it said Jeroboam and all the assembly of Israel came and spoke to Rehoboam. So we don't even know if it's him doing any speaking yet. He's fairly passive. He's being told to come, and he does, and he goes forward with the leaders, with the representatives, to speak to Rehoboam. And they say, your father put a very heavy yoke on us. Just as a reminder, all of the Kovi, not quite slaves, but forced labor to pay debts usually, and that 3-month cycle, those were all people from the northern tribes, the northern 10 tribes, not from the south. And it's a heavy burden upon them, a heavy yoke. They say, make it lighter, and we will serve you. Okay. And Rehoboam sounds like a good thing. He says, give me some time to think about it. Give me some time to think about it and to work out a plan. Come back here in 3 days. So what happens? Pick up there, verse 6. Then King Rehoboam took counsel with the older men who had attended his father Solomon while he was still alive, saying, how do you advise me to answer these people? They answered him, if you will be a servant to this people today and serve them and speak good words to them when you answer them, then they will be your servants forever. Period. So pause. Even though these men that Rehoboam sought counsel from were part of Solomon's court, apparently advisors to him, it would seem they weren't in 100% agreement with the things that Solomon had done. And they are willing to make concessions. They are willing, they're telling him, you treat them well today. They're looking at the big picture, right? These are big picture guys. You do this today, and you will have them forever. You will have them forever. You can lock in everything and keep the kingdom united. That's what's on their mind. Certainly seems to be anyway. And they give good counsel. They give good counsel. Picking up from there, verse 8. But he disregarded the advice that the older men gave him and consulted with the young men who had grown up with him and now attended him. Pause. And both the NIV and the NRSV translated as young men. In Hebrew, and it's probably meant derogatorily, it's literally the boys. The boys. But he disregarded the advice that the older men gave him, and he consulted with the boys who had grown up with him and now attended him. Pause. So these boys grew up with him. They're used to the kind of lifestyle that they've got. They're friends. They're friends, and they're gonna speak to his ego. Those are my words. Picking up from there, verse 9. He said to them, "What do you advise me? What do you advise that we answer this people?" Pause. Did you notice that? There's a difference in what he asked the older men and the boys. The older men, he asked, "What do you advise me to answer this people?" In other words, it's all about me. Or what should I say to these people? But here it says, "What do you advise that we answer the people who have said to me?" He's pulling them into it. And it's on them as well as on him. And this is for us. This is for us. What should we say? What should we say? What do you advise that we answer the people who have said to me, "Lighten the yoke that your father put on us"? The boys who had grown up with him and said to him, "Thus you should say to this people who spoke to you, your father made our yoke heavy, but you must lighten it for us. Thus you should say to them, my little finger is thicker than my father's loins. Now, whereas my father laid on you a heavy yoke, I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions." Pause. Now, and both the NIV and the NRSV says "my little finger," and most translations do. In Hebrew, it's more vague. It doesn't say finger in Hebrew. It's usually translated as finger. In Hebrew, it's "my little thing." So there's this, the idiom that they're speaking here is actually probably quite vulgar. He's probably speaking about his manhood and bragging about himself. My member is thicker than my father's loins, or my father's waist. Obviously, so he's so trying to say how virile he is, how strong he is, how important he is, how much more of a man he is than his father ever was. And so you think he laid a heavy yoke on you, I'm going to add to it. He might have disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. Now, that word that's translated scorpions, apparently it is scorpions, but it probably means, rather than just regular whips, leather, which even if they were knotted strips of leather, the ones that have pieces of metal embedded in them, which should be even worse than leather strips. Continuing. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam the third day, as the king had said, "Come to me again the third day." The king answered the people harshly. He disregarded the advice that the older men had given him and spoke to them according to the advice of the boys. "My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions." So the king did not listen to the people, because it was a turn of affairs brought about by Yahweh, that he might fulfill his word, which Yahweh had spoken by Ahijah the Shilonite to Jeroboam, son of Nebat. When all Israel saw that the king would not listen to them, pause, and here where it says all Israel, it's talking about the northern 10 tribes. The people answered the king, "What share do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look now to your own house, O David." Pause. Ooh, a couple chapters ago, return to your tents was a good thing, right? That was following the dedication of the temple and Solomon's prayer and the pledges and everything that the people made. Return to your tents. That was after everything that had taken place, all this wonderful stuff, and it was said in that context. Here, same words, much different context. This isn't peaceably returning to your homes. This is getting ready for battle. We are done with David's line. We are done with the Davidic dynasty. To your tents, O Israel, northern kingdom. Look now to your own house, O Israel. Picking up. So Israel went away to their tents. But Rehoboam reigned over the Israelites who were living in the towns of Judah. When King Rehoboam sent Adoram, who was taskmaster over the forced labor, all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam then hurriedly mounted the chariot to flee to Jerusalem. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. The date of the author or editor putting this together. When all Israel heard that Jeroboam had returned, they sent and called him to the assembly and made him king over all Israel. There was no one who followed the house of David except the tribe of Judah alone. When Rehoboam came to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen troops, to fight against the house of Israel, to restore the kingdom to Jeroboam, son of Solomon. But the word of God came to Shemaiah, the man of God. Say to King Rehoboam of Judah, son of Solomon, and to all the house of Judah and Benjamin, and to the rest of the people, thus says Yahweh, you shall not go up or fight against your kindred, the people of Israel. Let everyone go home, for this thing is from me. So they heeded the word of Yahweh and went home again, according to the word of Yahweh. Pause. Okay. So Rehoboam is not learning from history, because there are lots of connections back to the book of Judges, to some of the things that took place there, including someone being sent in and being killed, someone trying to make themselves king over a particular area, and all that kind of stuff taking place. He's not learning from history. He's not learning from history. And he's not listening to God until now. Until now, we're being told that he finally listens to God and surrenders to what's taking place. All right, and calls off the battle. Picking up from there, verse 25. Then Jeroboam built Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and resided there. He went out from there and built Penuel. Pause. So he rebuilt Shechem. He didn't build it for the first time because it had been a city, but he rebuilt Shechem, and he also rebuilt Penuel. And Penuel was a special place because that was one of the first places that that Abraham stayed at and lived for a while after he left Haran. So it's a special place, and he has rebuilt it. Then Jeroboam said to himself, so we're being led in on what's going on in Jeroboam's head, at least according to the authors and the editors, what was taking place in his head. He's been inactive, now he's becoming proactive, right? Then Jeroboam said to himself, now the kingdom may well revert to the house of David if this people continues to go up to offer sacrifices in the house of Yahweh at Jerusalem. The heart of this people will turn again to their master, King Rehoboam of Judah. They will kill me and return to King Rehoboam of Judah. So the king took counsel and made 2 calves of gold. He said to the people, you have gone up to Jerusalem long enough. Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. Pause. In Hebrew, it actually isn't plural. It isn't plural, even though there are he's making 2 of them. In Hebrew, it's singular. It doesn't really sound like he's trying to set up idolatry, worship of a different God. He seems to be talking about Yahweh and worshiping God. It's only singular. What's important too, though, is he's using this Exodus imagery. Why is that important? Well, yeah, I mean, God led them out of Egypt, but they've just been, once again, they've been released from slavery. They were basically slaves to the southern kingdom, to the people of Judah, to Solomon, and God has led them again to freedom. That seems to be Jeroboam's point, and why he is setting up other place to worship rather than Jerusalem. There's no reason to go back to Jerusalem, just as there was no reason to go back to Egypt for the first Hebrews that left that country. There's no reason for us to go to Jerusalem anymore. We've got a perfectly good place to worship here. We might read it as, oh, he's going to have them worshiping these calves of gold. No, they're a symbol for Yahweh God. Just as the cherubim and the Ark of the Covenant were seen as a symbol for the presence of God and for God's throne, these are symbols of the God who led you out of Egypt. Good morning, Shar. Good to have you joining us this morning as well. This is great. All right, my friends, continuing. He set one in Bethel and the other he put in Dan. Okay, so he probably isn't doing things exactly correctly. He's setting up multiple things. And here's where we're going to get really nasty. And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one at Bethel and before the other as far as Dan. He also made houses on high places and appointed priests from among all the people who were not Levites. Pause. So the editor, the Deuteronomistic editor, is his problem with Jeroboam is that he's not following the rules of Deuteronomy, of the Deuteronomistic author of those things. He set up multiple places for worship. Excuse me, one in Bethel and one in Dan, and now he's setting up high places, which that's getting real tricky because that's what Solomon did, and that's how Solomon drifted away to worshiping other gods. So he's really getting close to the edge of setting up things for idolatry. And he thinks he's doing everything right. And the de-editor is really pounding away at that, including the part, perhaps especially the part, of who he has appointed priests. He's just picking his own priests rather than using the Levites, the official priestly clan of the people of Israel. Picking up from there, 32, Jeroboam appointed a festival on the 15th day of the 8th month, like the festival that was in Judah, and he offered sacrifices on the altar. So he did in Bethel, sacrificing to the calves that he had made. And he placed in Bethel the priests of the high places that he had made. He went up to the altar that he had made in Bethel on the 15th day in the 8th month, in the month that he alone had devised. He appointed a festival for the people of Israel, and he went up to the altar to offer incense. Pause. The festival in Jerusalem that the editor is referring to is the seems to be anyway the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Booths Sukkot, which takes place on the 15th day of the 8th month. So he picked the same time, but he's creating his own festival, and so the Deuteronomistic editor has a problem with that because it's not a festival ordained by God, directed by God, told by God to have this festival. He's just doing it on his own, Well, my friends, that's it for today's session. We'll be back together on Tuesday. Of course, love to have you join together with me and with others on Sunday morning for worship, in person at 8:15 or 10:45, or if you can't do in person, then join us at 10:45 for live stream for our new thing, our Come to the Table. Oh, by the way, look for that video introducing it. Be on there in a little while, I believe. Also, I posted a little thing yesterday. Love to have you participate in that. Send me some pictures, some selfies or groupies. You know what a groupie is? A groupie is more than one person. It's where you're including yourself in it. Anyway, of you, your family, your friends sitting down and eating together, or just sitting around a table, even if it's not eating. Send me those pictures. You can send it to my email. Of course, you can also text it to me and I can download it from there. Whatever works, whatever is easiest for you, please do that. We're using that as part of our worship for the next few weeks. Anyway, my friends, that's going to be it for today. I pray that this has been beneficial, that you've learned something, relearned something, that God has spoken to you in some way. Let's go about your days, not just today, but every day. Keep those eyes and ears open to everything that our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say thank you, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed.